Uh-oh.
In her last two fights. Good way hitting him from Howling down.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. This past weekend, in the city of brotherly love, an unbeaten fighter that I've had my eye on for a while, Howling, advanced to a professional record of 7-0 opposite the ring seasoned veteran Nancy Franco, a fighter with a lot more fights and a lot more rounds in the bank, a lot more experience than young Bree. And per usual, Bree was able to stay in character, look the part, winning a unanimous decision over the course of 8 rounds in what was a bantamweight contest. Bantamweight, that's 118 pounds. That's where Dina Thorsland holds the WBO and WBC titles. That's where Shernika Johnson currently holds the WBA, where Miyo Yoshida holds the IBF. That's where this past weekend's contest took place, where Bree Howling was able to advance to a professional record of 7 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 knockouts, and she already has another fight in the books. She already has another upcoming fight date in July. Having seen action 2 times this year, 2 times already, she's already off to a more productive start this year than she was the last one, because last year she only fought once. This year she's already fought 2, going on 3 times. If my memory serves me, Bree Howling recently inked a promotional pact with King's Promotions, and since then they've been doing a good job of keeping her busy and keeping her active. King's Promotions, that's the same promotional outfit that used to promote Alicia Baumgartner before she signed to Matchroom. It's the same promotional outfit that is currently promoting Bree Howling, serving their purpose. A good starter outfit for a young unbeaten up-and-comer who needs some fights and someone to orchestrate them.
You see the virtue.
She is already off to a more productive start, a far more productive start this year than she was the last one, making up for lost time. If she takes care of business in July, that leaves plenty of room to schedule another fight, a 4th fight this year, and I think she needs to.
She should.
You see the quality in Bree Howling's technique. As Nancy Franco barrels forward in that high guard,
Trying to pressure Bree.
Bree is still in control, stepping around Nancy Franco to open up new angles.
Find holes around the guard to land punches.
Around the side of the guard or under it. Look at the body shots. She notices that Nancy Franco is doing a decent job of protecting her head, so she goes to the body. She goes downstairs, opens her up down there, then she's able to go back upstairs, take control.
Bree's got
I
it.
say it all the time. This fighter has the look of a far more seasoned, far more experienced fighter than she actually is. It's surprising that she doesn't come from some deep amateur background.
That she's not an Olympian.
26 years old, from Canada. I don't think it's at all presumptuous to say that Bree Howling here today, I'm already seeing enough that I would pick her to beat Miyo Yoshida. After a few fights, I might even pick her to beat Shernika Johnson. Not getting ahead of myself, I understand that she needs more developmental fights, but she is getting them.
I would love for Matchroom to sign this fighter.
If and when Bree Howling's existing deal with King's Promotions is up, I would love for Matchroom to pick this fighter up, because this is the kind of fighter that should be fighting on the big stage. The skills, they just jump out at you.
Yesterday it was announced that Matchroom signed Stephanie Piñeiro, an unbeaten up-and-comer in the welterweight division.
From Puerto Rico, an unbeaten up-and-comer who I've talked about many times here on this channel to the same effect that I've been talking about Bree Howling.
Right?
You think about how Ebony Bridges' career seems to be in limbo right now. We don't know what's going on. how Shannon Courtenay's career seems to be in limbo as well, how both Nina Hughes and Chantel Cameron very recently left Matchroom, and how that leaves the door open for a new cycle, a new crop of fighters. Bree Howling could and should be one among them.
They just fortified their female stable by signing Stephanie Pinheiro. I think they could further fortify it by signing Bree Howling.
He's a young fighter, only 26 years old. Many good years to give to the sport, with a fan-friendly style that jumps out at the screen. I would like for Bree Howling, if and when her deal with King's Promotions is up, to go to Matchroom.
Look for the ring return of Bree Howling in July against an opponent that is yet to be announced.
In men's super lightweight news, Usyk Cruz's handler, Sean Gibbons, says, "I don't see Pitbull losing his title anytime soon."
There's been a lot of talk about who's going to be the heir apparent after Canelo Alvarez is done. After Canelo Alvarez is gone,
Does Usyk have what it takes to fill that void if and when that day comes? Usyk Cruz, the WBA World Super Lightweight Champion, won his title in emphatic fashion when he defeated Rolly Romero in Las Vegas in March.
I picked him to win that fight.
I think most people did. Cruz's stock subsequently skyrocketed, and manager Sean Gibbons said he has not seen anyone's popularity enhanced as much in a long time. Cruz makes his first defense on August 3rd at the BMO Stadium in Los Angeles on a huge event co-promoted by TGB, Matchroom, Golden Boy, Warriors Boxing, and Salida Promotions. And Gibbons can see Cruz stealing the show. I guarantee this guy Cruz in Los Angeles will not be able to walk anywhere.
Said Gibbons.
It's true that immediately after he knocked out Rolly Romero, Usyk Cruz's Instagram following, his Instagram followers skyrocketed from about 500,000 or just north of 500,000 to over 1 million. When we were in Vegas and it's a fight week, we got stopped a good amount of times, and trying to go from an elevator to a restaurant was impossible. There was almost a riot the last time. People were pushing and were shoving. I've worked with guys like Orlando Salido, and he reminds me of him in ways, around the same weight divisions, and I've worked with some of the best, Chavez and those guys. But right now, Pitbull is the hottest guy that I've ever worked with, and I've been doing this a long time. If there's gonna be a card in LA, you're gonna need to load it up with Mexicans. Thank goodness I'm blessed to work with heavyweight Andy Ruiz.
Sean Gibbons is working with Andy Ruiz.
That's news to me. So he's working with Andy Ruiz and he's working with Usyk Cruz. The next several months could be very good to Sean Gibbons if they both take care of business in August. He says, "Thank goodness I'm blessed to work with heavyweight Andy Ruiz and the hottest Mexican outside of Canelo, Pitbull. There's a couple of good fights on there. Tim Tszyu versus Virgil Ortiz, Andy and his guy, Jarrell Miller, but Usyk cannot be in a bad fight. And it's kind of a dangerous fight because my man, Jose Valenzuela, that style in this California arena is going to be off the charts." Gibbons also feels there is much more to come from Cruz, who is only 25 with a record of 26 wins with 2 losses, 1 draw, 18 knockouts. For a start, Gibbons believes holding the title will improve Cruz as a fighter.
It might.
The good thing about Usyk is that he's suffered losses before. Those losses give you something to draw from, something to learn from, and in many ways, keep you centered, keep you level, that he isn't an unbeaten up-and-comer.
An unbeaten fighter, a blue-chip prospect that's going to have a chip on his shoulder, even though in some ways he already does.
But you know what I mean? He doesn't have an O to protect. It's like they say, they improve X amount mentality by holding a title, and especially him, because his father was basically used as an opponent. Usyk Cruz Sr., not a bad fighter. You see on BoxRec, he's something like 14-6. He fought Vernon Forrest, Ivan Robinson. The kid's a dream. The father's dream was that belt. So I just see a guy who, before we got the opportunity with Rolly, he was in La La Land. He was in space. We had nothing. We didn't know what we were doing. He was huge. He was fat. Now he looks like a Mexican Mike Tyson, physically, mentally. And he fights for his kids and his wife. And they're with him all the time when he's in camp and at the fight. So I see a guy who's not going to lose that belt anytime soon.
He better not.
Not that we're chasing him. Our little friend Gervonta. We're done trying to make the fight unless someone says here's a contract, added Gibbons. We wasted 2 years waiting for an opportunity. Ryan would have been another great fight, and unfortunately, his situation, now we have to wait and see. But the 2 mega fights for Pitbull were Gervonta and Ryan. Those are the big ones. Outside of that, everything goes right on the 3rd of August. He's created his own brand. It's the craziest thing. Cruz's social media went from 814,000 to 1.4 million in just a week. In a week! That's bonkers to me, but he's recognized everywhere. The Gervonta fight put him on the map, then the fight with Rolly took him off there. And his personality, who he is. He's the humblest guy. It's like Miguel Cotto, but Usyk's got more personality. Cotto was the silent, quiet guy. Didn't like to do a lot of interviews and didn't like to be around a lot of people. Usyk has a presence that some people in the sport have, and people just gravitate to it. I call it Pitbull mania.
So he's got to be careful now.
He's got to make it past Valenzuela. That's the first assignment. After that, he has a mandatory challenger in the queue in Ishmael Barroso, the same Ishmael Barroso that came very close to knocking out Rolly Romero, the same Ishmael Barroso that did knock out O'Hara Davies. He's Isaac Cruz's problem. He's his mandatory. He's in the queue. If Usyk beats Rayo, it's conceivable that Ishmael is next.
Those are good fights.
To be honest with you, Isaac Cruz versus Rayo, that's going to be a fan-friendly fight, as would the Ishmael Barroso fight. Usyk has star quality, star potential. I said it immediately after the Gervonta Davis fight, that if they play their cards right, because this guy's a chilango, he hails from Mexico City,
And because of his style.
he has the potential to amass a grassroots following that'll put a lot of money in his pocket. He just has to play his cards right. Now, in the subsequent 2 years that have followed, he's been fighting on undercards against forgettable opponents in somewhat forgettable fights, save the Rolly Romero fight.
They shouldn't sacrifice him to Gervonta.
My honest opinion is that Isaac Cruz doesn't need a Gervonta Davis rematch. He's a champion now, a champion at 140 pounds. He can make his own money being the A-side fighter in his own fights without making concessions to Gervonta, because Gervonta would undoubtedly...
He'd ask him to make concessions. He's gonna A-side him, whether he has a belt or not.
Of course, Usyk could make a decent amount of money in that fight because the profile for a rematch, it actually has one. Whereas the first time out, Usyk was a late replacement and nobody knew him. The pay-per-view didn't sell anything, but the rematch, that would.
So is it worth it?
To just be an opponent for Gervonta Davis. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to build on your own legacy, carve out your own lane to where down the line, you'll be the A-side fighter to most fighters at or around your weight? I don't know that Usyk actually has the skill, the ability, and longevity.
He does have his limitations.
He does only have one gear and one way of fighting a fight.
He's limited.
With a limited ceiling, though so long as he can keep himself in the winner's bracket, keep fighting and racking up these highlight reel knockouts, his potential marquee value is greater than some other fighters who have a higher ceiling.
Boxing is funny like that.
The potential is there, but is the ability? We'll see how it all shakes out for Usyk. Win or lose in August. Finally, ahead of this weekend's mega match, Tyson Fury is set to weigh in at a career lightest. John Fury, Tyson Fury's father, has revealed to us that his son will weigh in at a career lightest when he faces Alexander Usyk this weekend. The lowest weight he has ever weighed in is 245 pounds against Vinny Matalone in 2012. But in his biggest win to date against Vladimir Klitschko, he weighed in at just 247. Do you think it's best for him to come in lighter or heavier?
We talked about how the former undisputed heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis, he has Tyson Fury winning the fight. Mike Tyson has Tyson Fury winning the fight, as does boxing insider Rick Glacier, who I don't often disagree with, but I disagree with him here.
Rick Glacier said, "Many have asked, who do I like in Fury versus Usyk?" Well, that answer is right here, right now. Tyson Fury has taken this fight very seriously. Unlike the post-Wilder fights versus White, Chisora, and Ngannou, as you can see how hard Fury has physically prepared in his rather now leaned-out body, he's bigger, stronger, faster than Usyk.
Oh, he's bigger. He's definitely bigger, and he may be stronger, but I don't know about faster.
I don't know about that. Rick continued, plus Tyson will lean on the smaller Usyk on the inside and in clinches, and Fury's very long jab will pay dividends in setting up his big right hand. Usyk has had a huge ring IQ advantage against all of the fighters he has faced previously, but does not have that advantage against Fury, as Fury will match Usyk's high ring IQ.
I think it's the other way around, buddy.
Tyson Fury will become the undisputed world heavyweight champion Saturday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Take that to the bank. Rick Glacier is of the opinion that Fury will have the advantage of being able to match Usyk's ring IQ, where I think it's the other way around. Tyson Fury has largely benefited from having better range of motion and movement than most of the heavyweights in the division because most of those guys are actually very slow and cumbersome.
He's not.
And that has worked to his advantage. But here and now, he faces a guy who moves just as much, if not better, than he does, but he's a smaller man and a smaller target. Comparing the range of motion and movement of Fury to Usyk's is comparing broad strokes on the canvas.
Because of Fury's physical dimensions. Even though he can move, he's still a very big guy. He can't make movements as short, as sharp, and as subtle as Usyk because he's still a very big guy.
It's clear now that Tyson Fury has every intention to box Alexander Usyk, to move around, set traps, and try to walk him into something. He didn't lose all that weight because he plans on mowing him down and bullying him with his size. He lost all that weight so that he would be able to move around better and last longer, not having to carry all that extra weight.
He's gonna box.
What some are calling the earmark of Tyson Fury's commitment and how he's taking this fight a lot more seriously than what fights led up to it, that he's so fit and trim, so streamlined. You know, I remember when Andy Ruiz tried to do that. I remember when Andy Ruiz tried to shed some weight, shed some pounds, and it weakened him.
Ahead of the Chris Arreola fight where he was floored.
Journeyman Chris Arreola stunned Andy Ruiz and dropped him. Losing all of that weight weakened Andy Ruiz. It weakened his punch resistance.
I think it's weakened Tyson Fury.
So in his last fight, he weighed in at approximately 277 pounds. That was with Ngannou. They're saying he's going to weigh in a career lightest. So you're talking about a fighter who has shed in excess of 32 pounds, maybe 40. That's a lot of weight to lose in a short amount of time.
Why is that important?
You could lose too much weight too fast. We're not talking about losing weight for the sake of losing weight. It's intrinsic and aesthetic value. We're talking about losing weight to be able to perform, and if you lose too much too fast, it can weaken you.
I think it weakened Fury.
In this era of Instagram and TikTok reels and feel-good stories, it's a feel-good story that Tyson Fury was once a morbidly obese man, and look at him now.
It's a feel-good story, but them punches ain't gonna feel good when they start to land.
You don't have that extra layer of fat to help you absorb them, that shock absorber.
He's thin because he wants to move, and he wants to move because he doesn't want to get hit.
No, I don't share in Rick Glacier's sentiments in reference to this weekend's fight. I think Usyk has a higher ring IQ than Tyson Fury. I think he's always had a higher ring IQ than Fury.
Better feet.
I think he's a lot more graceful than Tyson Fury. His movements are shorter and sharper. He can
Turn him.
get to the side of Tyson Fury, pivot, and force Fury to turn with him.
Who do you think that's more difficult for? The shorter guy with the shorter center of gravity, or the big man who's trained to fight like a small one?
The secret weapon is the tempo.
The pace at which the fight is being fought, which I think is going to catch up to Tyson Fury.
I disagree. I have Usyk winning the fight.